Hello and welcome to the final session of Egypt International Mining Show Conference. I would request all of us to keep on mute when one is speaking.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is basically the VIP roundtable, which will discuss the key takeaways and the future business opportunities of the mining sector in Egypt. So let me introduce you to the moderator of this session, Mustafa Talat. He is the CEO of Gold Pyramid Group, and this Gold Pyramid Group is also our supporting partner for Egypt International Mining Show. So yeah, Mustafa, now I would like to hand the stage to you. You can please continue the session.
Thank you, Afshin, for the introduction, and I would like to welcome all the participants in the VIP roundtable discussions. It's really a pleasure today to host this VIP meeting room, and I hope the audience will find fruitful information from the discussion that we're going to go through. So welcome everyone, and I would like to start with Mark Campbell for the question of Mark, you have been here in Egypt now for over 25 years, overlooking what's happening in the mining industry. So I know that you came across this yesterday in your presentation, but for people who haven't been attended the presentation yesterday, I would like you to summarize your experience in Egypt and how you see the future based on the activity which is happening now. Would you please unmute your mic, please? Mark?
Hi. I was just saying that I guess that's what happens when you're the old guy on the panel, that you get asked about history. I mean, over the past 26 years of being involved in the mining industry here, it's a very different place, obviously. 26 years ago, with Centamin, there was nothing here, and we believed in the geology. Sammy certainly believed in the geology, not just of Sukari, but of the Eastern Desert. But we were very small. Our share price was probably somewhere south of 2.5 cents US. There was nothing out there. Marsa Alam, which was the nearest town, well, you could really call it that. I mean, the sign that said "Welcome to Marsa Alam" was the same sign that said "You're now leaving Marsa Alam." So it was real frontier stuff, and it was and people and raising money, and of course, as a junior, that is you're all in concentration is always being funded, and trying to convince people that we were in Egypt and, explaining that to people and trying to find investors. And, it was very difficult. But we believed not just in the geology, but we also, I guess, maybe naively or overly optimistically believed that the government, if we explained to them that, you had to get rid of this production sharing agreement, the economics were different, this would attract investment, and all the rest of it. And we thought, well, these are bright guys. They'll see this. So fast forward over 20 years later, we're still have the same, production sharing agreement. It's difficult to raise money. We found some other people who, like ourselves, were either, believers or masochists. And, we had Aton Resources came, SMW, Tani, Dubai. Anglo Ashanti was here for a little while. Stratix was here for a little while. And it was very, very tough. And so to think about this in terms that probably easy for everybody here is that 2 years ago when we had this conference at the Nile Hilton in Cairo, it had a very small turnout. There weren't a lot of people in attendance. I don't think there were any foreign sponsors, and very few topics to cover. Today, there's just under 500, or more people. There are lots of sponsors, and we've gone from sort of 0 to 60 in the last 2 years at an incredible pace. And so I come back to what I said yesterday. Egypt is a blank sheet of paper. It's a blank sheet of paper across the board. That is not only just the geology of the Eastern Desert, of which there is very little data on, the framework beyond the getting rid of the PSA, which I have to say is probably, you can't underestimate the significance of getting rid of that production sharing agreement. But still, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of creating policies, regulations that attract investment. The understanding by the government of the economics of our business. I have no doubt, being a true believer, that the future is bright here. And I think what it makes it so bright is that it is a blank sheet of paper. Everybody can contribute in some way, both exploration and working with the government to develop policies that will attract more investment. The training of people, which is of crucial importance here. So, I think that it took us a long way to get here. But, now that we are here, I think that there's nowhere else but up, and I think that is really, one of the most amazing things about it. And I think that Egypt has enormous potential. It's and I just finish with this. It's not just the excitement and the potential for the Eastern Desert or, at some point the Sinai, but it is all the money that the government has spent on infrastructure. If you look at other places you would call frontier, there usually isn't any infrastructure. Here, there's all the infrastructure you could want. There is a very highly motivated, receptive workforce. And so, and I know people talk about Egypt in sort of regional terms, but let's always remember, Egypt has always been the Beverly Hills surrounded by bad neighborhoods. So, it's, we have a strong government here. It's a safe working environment. It's a stable working environment. And so you layer all those things on top of each other. You've got exciting frontier geology. You've got the ability to influence how, the industry grows. Train people, and you've got everything that you could want to make that job easier and low cost. So I think it's bright.
Thank you, Mark. And since you have mentioned that the training and the need of the workforce, and this is leading to my second question to you, what's your view based on the exposure with the local workforce during the last 25 years in the mining sector? How do you see the training required for the geoscience and mining engineering education in Egypt?
Please unmute yourself, Mark.
Okay, sorry. So that's I'll come back to mining and engineering in a second, but let's just talk about workforce, education, and training. Again, this is all historic. If there hasn't been really an industry here in 100 years, where did people ever go to get trained? And if we just look back over the past 30 years, there was no place for people to get trained. That included the people who worked in the government. So when Sentiment came, we took graduates and trained them because there was no one to hire. The same with Aton and Tanny, because there just wasn't anyone that had any training. So you had to train them up. The guys that worked at, I know people talk about, Sentiment or Sakari and all the rest of it, but the guys like Abdul Halim Asrad or, Magdi Abdullah, these guys who had worked for Mike Crewalt and Rick Cavany all those years ago, they're no longer in the marketplace. You have some that were trained by Anglo Ashanti and Stratix. You have some that were trained by Aton. But again, these are few and far between. And, as Mustafa, geology is a practical science. It's not a classroom science. So, geologists don't really learn their trade as exploration geologists until they start working for somebody. Other than that, what do you know? Well, you know what a rock looks like. Well, that doesn't do you a lot of good. So, the fact of the matter is that you need someplace where these people can get trained. And that it comes from actually working for people that can mentor them and train them and teach them the job of being an exploration geologist. So, this is an issue, and it's a major issue that faces all of us as an industry. Now, the oil and gas industry has worked very closely with universities and the government over the past 120 years that they've been here. So we turn out petroleum engineers and geophysics every day of the week and twice on Sundays. And that's something that the industry is going to have to address, is working with the government, working with universities, trying to promote programs where people could get work experience. I myself and my partners, I think you may have heard this earlier, Salah Badr, and you, Mustafa, have this initiative to do training, especially vocational training, and work with the government on things like mineral economics. But there has to be more than just those initiatives. There has to be initiatives from the industry as a whole as to how we train people. From companies themselves, you're going to have to do some training. And to expect that there are lots of people out there, this is just not the case. In the government, even less, probably zero. So, this is a huge issue going forward. It is also a huge opportunity because you do have good students here. You have eager students here who want to go and get to work. You have, as I say, a good workforce, and especially in with the Saidis or people from Upper Egypt. There's a lot of opportunity. The fact that they're untrained doesn't make them not enthusiastic. I go and talk at universities and the geoscience departments, and there are a lot of eager beaver little faces sitting out there, wanting to have a job. The problem is, where do they go? And except for the Tharawat and Shalatin, I mean, that's based on artisanal mining. So, they don't learn anything there. So, there's very few places for them to go. And coming on just to your point about mining and engineering, Sentiment and Capital Drilling actually have done a very good job of training people over the years. We've hired people at Aton when I was at Aton from Sentiment, but they stopped exploration over a decade ago. They're ramping it up now. But there was no exploration, and it was all mining. So for the last decade, if you were a mining engineer like yourself, Mustafa, or you were a mine geologist, or you learned to be a mine geologist, yeah, sure, there were jobs around, but exploration, not so much. So yes, I think it's a good environment for mining engineers, and certainly they need training, but you need to employ all of them. You need to build more mines, and to build more mines, you got to find more mines. And so exploration is really the key, and training is I think one of the highest priorities the industry is going to face. So manpower, good. Universities, good. Eager beavers, excellent. But, somebody's got to train them.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing your insights, and we hope, based on the exploration startup at the 2021, that we'll see more developed mines in the next 5 to 10 years, inshallah. Thank you, Mark. This will take me to the second speaker. I would like to share the insights from Stephen. Stephen, you are representing MSA Labs, which is a global service provider in the geochemical laboratory services. And let's say that you are one of the newcomers. We have heard from Mark as being existing in the market for many years. I would like you, please, to share your insights about what was your roadmap in entering into the Egyptian market and how you see the success of your business and expectations for the market.
Oh, thank you very much for that question. Specifically for Egypt, we had the advantage of being a company associated with Capital Drilling. So wherever you have companies that are drilling for exploration samples and so on, they're going to need laboratory services. So we're a natural adjunct to that. And then through our contacts within Capital, we did some market research and found out that there were no commercial services available in Egypt. Unfortunately, current explorers had only the opportunity to have their samples prepared in country and then export the pulps to a foreign laboratory. And obviously, this would entail extra bureaucracy because EMRA, or the equivalent of a geosurvey, always wants to inspect the samples before export. There's time delays, there's cost delays, and what I consider the most important aspect is that geologists lose control over their own samples. So coming into Egypt, where there is no existing service, means there's an opportunity for us to be the first mover. And we're here along with the process that we've discussed over the last 2 days of the reformation of the mining industry, exploration industry within Egypt. So that's basically how we've come to be here. Our expectations are not substantial as such. We're starting with what we would consider a fairly small operation. So I guess you would call it prudent with our risk. We are not starting up with existing contracts with any clients just yet. So we are taking a risk, but we consider that a measured risk. And to be honest, I think we have a lot of upside potential. It may take 6, 12 months, maybe a little bit longer. But I think this process of, we've seen the first round of bidders with their license awards, with the second round to come. So there's going to be a new influx of expertise, venture capital, investment, etc., that will translate to samples. And I suspect that will underpin quite a successful operation for us in the near term. We're not expecting to be flat out busy on day one, but that's fine. We can take our time. We also have to train new staff because there's not a reservoir of experienced talent for our procedures. But that's fine by us. A slow start, make sure we do a good job, and I think everybody will be happy.
We are looking forward for dealing with your laboratory once it's open in Egypt. The second question will be, the existence of the laboratory will be, as you mentioned, a key player in saving lots of cost and money and time, which is translated into money in the exploration business. So the most important question for any mining company or exploration company will be how long it will take for my sample since I hand over to your laboratory, especially that we are expecting the handover process for all the mining companies to happen at once. at the same time you will be starting up your operations. So although yes, you mentioned maybe you don't yet have contracts, but I'm sure that you will have a queue waiting for receiving this analysis. Especially many companies already prepared their geological teams, and they are handling the hammer and just waiting to grab the samples. So.
Yeah. In an ideal world, a lab receives a steady flow of samples each day. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way. Particularly that we can operate in environments where there's seasonality, be it winter to summer, wet season, dry season, cultural holidays, etc. For our initial model, when we're budgeting, processing 6,000 samples a month, that's essentially 300 samples per day by 20 days. That's a two-shift operation. So within that model, our turnaround for sample preparation and gold results would be 1 to 2 weeks. But it does depend on the volume and frequency of samples being received. I think you can imagine that if a truck arrives with 2,000 samples in the back, and they're delivered all at once, that puts substantial pressure on the laboratory, and samples will have to wait before they can get processed. But coming back to my original point, I mean, we're starting at a certain size, and if demand increases, well, we bring in extra resources. We move from 1 shift to 2 shifts. We move from 2 shifts to 3 shifts. We do overtime. We bring in more equipment. So we can flex up and down. This is quite normal practice for laboratories around the world. But the busier, the better. It's a much better problem to have than no samples at all, which does happen in the down times.
Yes, indeed. And wishing you all the best in the business startup in Egypt, and I'm sure that you will be expanding your business very quickly, especially that Egypt enjoys the all year operations. We don't have any seasons to stop any operation side from here. So good luck to you. And
I agree with you, to be honest. So
we will be one of your first clients for sure.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you for sharing your insights. And now I will move to Simon, the man maybe behind, representing entity behind lots of the activities that's happening at the moment. I would like to welcome Simon from Wood Mackenzie, and Wood Mackenzie participated in the mining reform and making the new mining code with the government, and their success lead to all of our existence here today, talking about the new shape of the industry. So I know also that Woodmac is getting involved in mining reforms with many countries in the region at the moment, and I'm sure they are very busy. And based on what you see, Simon, based on the untap or the opening up of the mining potential in Egypt, and at the same time other countries are trying maybe to do the same thing, but it will come later on. How do you see the biggest opportunity for Egypt in utilizing this opportunity by tapping the mineral resource earlier than others?
Well, I think this is an amazing opportunity for Egypt. You know, we're on the cusp of the next mining commodity super cycle. In our view, the energy transition is becoming ever more important. The decarbonisation agenda that the world is following as people congregate for COP26 in October, it's all about decarbonisation, and that can only happen with metals. The electrification of society, the decarbonisation is built around what you produce or what you will produce. And I think that is an amazing opportunity. Clearly, where Egypt is unique, I think, is that you do. I think a lot of what Mark said absolutely resonated with the way that I've been thinking about things. You know, this blank sheet in terms of the reputation of the country, in terms of the infrastructure that you have, in terms of the workforce and the work practices, These are all unique attributes that very few other countries with Egypt's potential have at their disposal. So a lot of countries have infrastructure that's maybe been around for several decades. It's probably not quite as efficient as it could be if it was built today. It's probably not quite as green. It probably still relies on hydrocarbons. It probably doesn't have, it's probably needing to be rejuvenated. So you've got infrastructure. As new infrastructure gets built, as with the laboratories that Stephen's producing and other suppliers, this will be cutting edge, world-class technology, and that will be something that really is appealing to producers. And then look at the next, I guess, attribute, and you've got a government that is demonstrably trying to attract mining into its country. And again, there are a lot of challenges with building out a mining project. Above ground risk is one of the biggest deterrents for investment. And by, I guess, creating that welcoming environment, by demonstrating a stability of policy, by demonstrating a willingness to work in conjunction with producers, with consumers, the environment for investment becomes very compelling. And in a world where there are lots of challenges, be that political, environmental, social, economic, having that stability, having that sort of welcoming embrace, I think is not to be underestimated in any way, shape, or form. I think the next attribute that I think makes Egypt a very compelling proposition is frankly where you are in the world. You are at this fantastic juncture to be able to service Asia, to be able to service Europe. And again, as we look at the way that the world has played out over the last couple of years, this slightly more nationalistic or regional agenda rather than the global trade agenda that certainly prevailed in the previous decades, I think plays to Egypt's position. You are really well able to service the car manufacturers and the industry into Europe, to feed Asia, to feed China. Again, these are where the major demand hubs are going to be, and positioning yourself there is something that no one else can compete with in many ways. And then I think the final point that I think maybe brings them all together is when we start to look at what the mining environment will be over the next 5 to 10 years, and in particular, when we start to look at the role of carbon pricing. As Europe implements its carbon border tax, as other countries start to think about how they're going to motivate for lower carbon content, lower carbon materials, Egypt has an abundance, or the potential for an abundance, of renewable power, as does several of your other neighbors, obviously. To create a renewable power hub in this region for aluminium producers, for steel, for base metals, will become a honeypot for investment. If the government, along with service providers and infrastructure developers, can really create this infrastructure that differentiates itself from the more carbon-heavy power infrastructure in China and the US, and indeed in Europe, there will be so much attention on building new processing facilities here, the very energy-intensive sectors. That will mean that, A, there is a lot of money to be made by those that take the leap in terms of building that infrastructure, and B, it will really position Egypt and others, I hope, that work in conjunction with you as really pioneers in this energy transition journey that, frankly, is a must-have for societies around the world. So for me, an amazingly exciting opportunity. I think a lot of people are watching and hoping that it plays out in a very positive way.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Simon, for sharing your insights about how you see the future of the opportunity in Egypt. And thank you also for representing WoodMac and participating in shaping the future of mining in Egypt. Thank you so much. Now my last questions will be going to Malak. Malak is representing the Desir law firm, and she's the one who, let's say that the new mining code, when Wood Mackenzie participated in doing the reforms, Malak was one of the lawyers who have seen from the other end the operations and participations in bid rounds and the processes required. And I would like to ask first, welcome Malak to the session. Please unmute your microphone so we can hear you properly. My questions with based on your experience now during the bid round number 1 and bid round number 2, how easy it was to see that the investments encouraging environment available from the Mineral Resource Authorities and Petroleum Ministry to encourage investors and more investors to come.
Of course. Thank you very much, Mustafa. Thank you, Simon, Mark, and Stephen. I'm sorry I encountered some technical issues at the start of the talk. I think now everything is in place. So regarding your question, Mustafa, I mean, I think we've seen what I would call at least a revolution in terms of the changes that happened in the mining code. We switched to
I think a technical issue happened with Malak. We would like just to give her 2 to 3 minutes to come back. Afshin, if you can communicate with her, please.
Yes, I will. I think she'll rejoin us in a moment. I'll just check with her.
Meanwhile, until she comes back, yes.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
No worries, Malak.
So as I was saying, I mean, we've seen now a structural and institutional change within the law in terms of switching from the past joint projects with the government to what we're seeing today, which is the rent and royalty system. It is the international standard for mining. It has obviously attracted international investors as well as local investors in the first and second bid rounds because it's a system that is known. It is a system that is profitable. At the end of the day, for me as an international investor to find myself in a situation where I have to partner with a government that I do not know is taking an enormous risk. And in projects like mining, it becomes extremely difficult to attract investors based on that system. So it's the legislative change had a structural impact, but I have to say that it is not maybe the only change that took place that encouraged the investment. At the end of the day, we need political will, and together we need legal changes to accompany that. And then we need to have visibility because at the end of the day, again, an investor will only come if there's visibility in terms of the process that he has to follow, in terms of the results that can be expected, in terms of how accountable he is, to who is he accountable. Another change that we've seen, for example, was the idea of having clear institutional roles. Today we have EMRA, a centralized authority. Today I have an issue at the start of the bidding process, during exploration, during exploitation. As an investor, I know where to go. I'm not being, torn between, a ministry, a different authority. I know exactly who to speak to. And when I speak about political will, that I have, witnessed firsthand at EMRA from, the chairman of EMRA and all employees have been extremely cooperative during both bid rounds so far. So the will is there, the legislation is there, and I think we're all hoping for the best and very optimistic.
And if I may add, Mustafa, Malak, I think to me, one of the fundamental points here is that this is when Egypt's reputation will really be forged. What happens over the next year or two, with upholding of the principles, this is what people will look at and go, okay, I get it. I see how Egypt is behaving. I can trust it, as you say, which is so important. And I feel ever more confident in investing. This is such an important moment for the industry in Egypt.
Indeed, and I would like also to highlight a subject maybe which was not in the plan of the table, but it just came that it's good to touch this area. Since now the mining reform is a better environment for investments, I think that the next big challenge for companies, especially the junior mining companies, will be the access to cash to be able to fulfill comprehensive exploration programs leading to a minimum of 10-year production plans. I think that the next challenge after the new mining code has already been accepted and the new amendments also that will happen to the exploitation agreement. We hope that it will come in the favor of the investors and the stock markets. But I believe that our next challenge that we will need to look at, not in the very far future, and after the first 2 years at least of the first exploration program for any company, especially juniors, they all will be seeking for funds. So the reputation of steering with the government will impact severely on this, and we hope that all the companies will be going smoothly on all what's happening related to the government activities. And to be honest, also based on experience dealing with EMRA, now we have seen lots of proactivity, not same as before. Now they are ready to talk and negotiate and put together and work proactively with the investors to make it more attractive for investments and for stock markets and for everyone who will be willing to join and participate. I think we have a few minutes left, so I will open the
session. Well, Mustafa, I agree with you.
But if anyone would like to add something.
No, I just was going to say I agree with you. Raising funds is always outside of doing the exploration work, is primarily what junior miners do. You're constantly looking, for money, and so and people have the ability to invest anywhere in the world. I mean, Egypt has to compete against other mining jurisdictions. It's not that people are just going to say, "Oh, great, Egypt now we're not going to go anywhere else." So it's always going to have to compete for this, and investors are fickle. 1 minute they like Egypt, the next minute they like Madagascar. I mean, so you have to keep their attention, and you have to wanting to come back more. This is where again I come back to my blank sheet sort of analogy is that these. Yes, there is centralization. Yes, you could go to EMRA, and yes, that is part of the Ministry of Petroleum and all the rest of it. But don't forget, throughout the mining law and everything else, there are many stakeholders. Okay, there's the Ministry of Finance, there's the Ministry of Labor, there's the Ministry. So there are a lot of stakeholders in this who also have to be brought along and understanding why this is good for the economy, why is it good for their ministry, and so. And I think you're absolutely right, Simon, that over the next couple of years, it is going to be incumbent upon both the government and industry to work together to try and sort of create frameworks and terms and conditions that make it attractive. Certainly, getting rid of having to be joined at the hip with the government is a huge step forward. This sentiment going back. I mean, it's sorry to go back, but Sammy never envisioned it becoming a mining company. Okay, it never was going to be a mining company, but it didn't matter. Whether it was Anglos or Goldfields or who came out to look at us. They all liked the geology, but the economic terms just didn't work to bring in a JV partner or even sell the project. So it sort of was the pure necessity to turn yourself into a mining business. And so, for every, it's like, royalties and all the rest of it, for every percentage point you add on in cost, you geometrically reduce the numbers of projects that may ever come to fruition. So there's what Mustafa is saying is financing is absolutely crucial, and creating an environment. There is political will. I think this is absolutely crucial, and it's there. I think that we have all the component parts to be able to make an attractive mining industry. Now we've just got to go and put them all together so that we do that, and that's going to take some time.
Mark, can I just add one quick comment? And again, I wholeheartedly agree with you. One of the interesting developments that is happening in the industry now is the increasing level of investment from downstream. So as consumers of metals, the battery fabricators, the car manufacturers, etc., are increasingly starting to look to partner with miners to secure supply for the future because they realize that there is going to be a major shortage. So as we look at where is the financing going to come from, yes, of course, there's the traditional sources, but I think there is actually a new opportunity to tap into a new source of capital to help build this new infrastructure, to build the new mines. And again, I think working in conjunction between producers, government, consumers is a very powerful opportunity that again, is still nascent and one that Egypt could really set the standard on.
Absolutely, blank sheet of paper. I mean, that is the great thing about here. We don't have baggage, related to the mining industry here. Why? Because we didn't have a mining industry here. So, we don't have a lot of issues that we have to carry around like a lot of other countries that have been in this for years. So, all those things are absolutely correct. That there are going to be new ways to finance projects. There are going to be ways to engage in a lot of these. And frankly, just one other thing, and that is, we know about base and precious metals being here, but there are a lot of other minerals that nobody's ever came to explore for. So that doesn't mean we don't have lithium. That doesn't mean we don't have platinum group metals. That doesn't mean, I mean, we've mapped for nickel, but nobody's ever done anything with it. So, there may be other minerals and what have you that as time goes by are not just crucial, but are attractive to investors around the world.
Just a small addition, since we're talking about a blank sheet of paper, and I know Simon mentioned as well the coming climate change conference and the role that mining has with regards to the energy transition. I think, and that touches again upon what Mark was talking about in terms of coordinating between different authorities and different ministries, because at the end of the day, we will need that. And in the news a couple actually of weeks ago, the Ministry of Environment, together with the Ministry of Petroleum, were looking to have a protocol done in order to start and establish some procedures in terms of sustainable mining in Egypt. And so that's why I just wanted to highlight it, because we've been talking about the blank page. It is the chance for all of us to get it right the first time. And having international companies invest here, international companies that already have CSR programs, that are already involved in environmental initiatives, is a good chance to involve them, first of all, in those protocols and in this discussion that's going to happen between the different stakeholders. In terms of sustainable mining within Egyptian legislation, the big lines are there. So community development is there, labor protection, HSC requirements are there. But the fine-tuning of all these processes, I think, would be quite interesting to see how international investors with the government could work together and maybe get it right the first time.
Thank you all. I have received some questions from the audience. Some people were asking about what about the Western Desert of Egypt. I think the Eastern Desert is just the start for this mining cycle. I'm sure that the Western Desert and Sinai will be the next two big things to happen for exploration and the expansion of development once the relevant authorities cover the mineral prospecting there. So again, we are speaking about this is only the start happening today, and we are all sharing the same vision that the future is bright and require lots of collaboration and contribution from the various experienced people and companies to shape this future in the right direction. If anyone else is having something to add, if not, then I will leave the stage to Mr. Tahir, who is the CEO of TAP Group, our host for today and yesterday conference, and I would like to thank him and his team for all his efforts to make this event successful. And I got lots of feedback that people are really enjoying and it's getting valuable information out of our conference. So thank you, Tahir, and the speech is yours. Tahir, I think you need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. We still can't hear you, Tahir. I think we need to unmute button. Now we can hear you, Tariq. Please go ahead.
Am I audible now?
Yes, we can all hear you. Thank you.
Excellent. Or I think my AirPod isn't working. So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It was indeed an honor for me and a pleasure for all of us here to be with you all in the last 2 days. Mustafa, thank you very much for your support. Your team has been, instrumental in helping us deliver this smoothly. And I still remember, before COVID, when me and my team were in Cairo, I think we're there for a couple of weeks for one of our other initiatives. And Mustafa has been an, outstanding host. We almost had, I think more than 10, 20 dinners together. So he was the one who, always took care of us. So we really miss that.
Always
but
welcome.
With COVID and the current pandemic, as we all know that, we have to find out ways where we can continue networking, continue meeting new people, and continue doing business. And I think this is one of the initiatives and one of our little steps where we are trying to get people together within the industry. For us, I think every one of us who has been here in the last 2 days, let us just make it a stepping stone for all of us to come together and play our role to try to help develop the mineral sector in Egypt. I am again very thankful to our sponsors, Capital Limited, MSA Labs, ARC Gold, Alta Strategies, the silver sponsors, Shalakani Exploration Mapping, NIS Logistics, Toshiba and Geodrill, and all the wonderful people who have been joining us. I know it's a bit challenging, people are waking up in the middle of night and joining us for the event, but this also at the same time shows the intent that people have towards the market, and this shows how serious people are for the market, and they really want to play an important part in it. With this, I once again would like to thank every one of you. And, I understand at times there probably have been some technical glitches, which again, I never shy away from, because this is a sort of a platform, this is sort of a business now, everybody is getting used to it. We have multiple connections coming in together, but ultimately we're very happy. We have seen the feedback from the people. We were in touch with all the people here continuously. My team was speaking with them. I think everyone is happy, and we're really glad about that. We look forward to stay connected, and my team would be very happy to share the presentations. We'll all upload it in links and send it across to all the people so that they can stay in touch with each other. Most hopefully early next week, we're all going to take a good weekend off now. The team has been working hard for the last, few weeks. So we're going to go for a good weekend now. And by next week, we should all send you all the details. And in any case, if there is anything we can do for you, we can help you connect with other people who you might have met here and missed the contacts. Or if there's anything we can do, we're just an email away. Everyone in my team, we're all happy to be associated with you, to support you, and to be part of your journey. Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. It was my pleasure to host you. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.